welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight for our Candidates Night. This is one of my favorite meetings that we have. We do meet monthly, but it's always a pleasure to get folks together from the community so that you can hear what the candidates have to say before an election. It's part of what the platform is for the Montville All Senior Association. It's part of what we're founded for, is to be able to be a platform so you can interact with the candidates and folks in local government. So it's always a pleasure to have us tonight. The format tonight, just quickly to go over that aspect of it, each candidate is going to have 10 minutes to speak. They can use that time however they want. They can speak for the whole 10 minutes. They can do Q&A with the audience. They can obviously do a mixture of both. So my lovely wife over here has got little time cards, and she's going to hold people to that, I think. So I don't want to get on her bad side, but so I think we'll get started in a second here. The first candidates that will speak are the city council candidates. I want to get 3 of them in and out because they have a meeting tonight, and they've graciously come and graced us with their presence before their meeting, so we appreciate that. And then following immediately after that, probably around 6:30, we'll have the school committee candidates speak. So I think that's pretty much the brief overview. We're going to go in alphabetical order for each, both the candidates for city council and for school committee. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and start with Noel DeBona.
Can I walk around? I like to move a little bit around. Can everybody hear me correctly? Hello. I want to thank the association for allowing me to speak here tonight. We were thinking we were going to church over there on the side, but we are at Montclair School. I want to first say thank you. My name is Noel DeBona, for people who don't know me. I'm the city councilor at large. I previously was on the school committee. I'll talk a little bit about my background. Grew up in Quincy Point area of the city. Graduated Quincy High School in 1993, educated through the Quincy Public Schools, furthered my education at UMass Boston, right across the way here. Started off in politics as a community activist here in the city. Was the Ward 2 Civic Association president, very similar to the presidency here. Also coached Quincy Point Panthers youth football in my 7th season doing that. Very important to mentor the children of our city, as well as being involved with the Sons of the American Legion Morissette Post 294. Been an active member for the Sons in tribute. My father and grandfather, Vietnam veteran and World War II veteran. So their veterans are part of the Sons of the American Legion. We do the flags for Veterans Island over at Ford Square over the last 6 years now. Very importantly, you know, looking back on this city, we're getting a little bit into it, and I'm going to open up for Q&A. We've done a few of these candidate nights, so it's the 10-minute spiel and then getting into what's going on in the city. I've presently been out for the last 5 months knocking on doors throughout the city, and in a consensus, I've been hearing about your concerns about what's going on in the city today. Compiling data over the last 4 years of what's been going on in the city and how can we make it better. The bottom line for me is to make sure that our city is a safe neighborhood to raise a family, a safe neighborhood for our citizens, that our taxpayers are getting the best possible dollar for what you're doing for the city. But there is a balance that you have to strike with that. Everybody wants low taxes, but you want low taxes, you have to also consider that the services are a little bit lower. So you have to strike that balance up at the city council level. Do we have the correct services, and do we have low taxes? And you have to strike the balance of the two. The 3 most important things that I like to consider when I make decisions up there is education is always going to be number 1. And that's education in our Quincy Public Schools. That's education out there for our opiate epidemic that's out there. Secondly, is always going to be public safety. Public safety is very important to me. Our police, our fire, giving them the proper funding and resources to do their job. Sometimes the budget is not enough. We have to go into a capital improvement plan. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about it because we have a little bit more time here tonight. Our capital improvement plan, we are in a AA+ rating right now. which means we kind of have to bond. We kind of have to borrow funding for some of the things that we want to do in the city. And we've done a lot of different things already with our capital improvement plan, and we look to see more of it. But I don't know if the Patriot Ledger here every time? Right. Sometimes the Patriot Ledger is a little misleading when they don't give you the factual information up front. Sometimes the leading story says bonding 80 million, and they don't specifically tell you what that 80 million is for or how it's being funded. A better paper, nothing against the Patriot Ledger, is to read that Quincy Sun. Give you facts about what's going on in the city of Quincy. It's a little more accurate for you, and then won't mislead you into the direction that some of the folks have been hearing out there. I think that's very important to understand. Thirdly, which is very important, is our infrastructure improvements. As we're developing in our city, I want to make sure that we're doing smart development. Redeveloping our city, but doing smart development in it. And our infrastructure is kind of paying a little bit of the price of our overdevelopment, basically, in a nutshell. I want to, in the next 2 years, bar getting reelected, we need to work on the commercial-based real estate. The commercial-based real estate will offset our taxes for our homeowners, for our original taxpayer in the city. We're in that phase right now with the boom. I feel that we're going to be going into that phase primarily for funding for our budget, funding for our roads, funding for infrastructure improvements. We're a very old city, and underneath, when you start to rip up some of the streets, you realize that underneath there's a lot of waters and gas and sewer that we kind of have to maintain throughout the city. I'm looking to get into a different tier of doing a 5, 10, 15-year segment of what's going on in the city underneath. I want to get into a little bit more what Florida's been doing, where they've been actually buying different positioning on the streets based on the infrastructure work underneath. I like that concept. If you're looking to put a business right over there, and there needs a lot of work or infrastructure improvements to be over there, maybe that's a great way of saying, well, you're going to be a little more taxed over there to take this acquisition, because underneath you have to do more infrastructure improvement. More like a mitigation plan. You want to lease, you want to buy certain areas of our land, but you need to start getting into our mitigation of traffic, mitigation of our roads, mitigation of our street repairs, which is also our sidewalks. I'm looking in the next phase down the road for the city of Quincy. It's not just today, it's also looking for the future. As we're developing, we have to have a plan in place for the future. That's also with our children. We get back to the Quincy Public Schools. In 2010, we built the Quincy High School, 2013, Central Middle School, and now we're getting to Sterling Middle School, should be open about September, October of next year. It's 3 new schools in the last 8 years. I was part of the Sterling Middle School Building Committee before I left the school committee. So I'm very proud that new structure will be for our kids over in that city. It also alleviates from 340 students, we'll go to 430. So it'll be 90 more students will be able to go to Sterling Middle School. We're also in the works of acquisitioning the St. Mary's Elementary School. The kids over in, behind the highway, over on Grove Street in that section of West Quincy, they're all district to this school, Montclair. It's a long ways to get over here from that section. That St. Mary's will alleviate some of the congestion and a little more redistricting. Talking a little bit more on the school committee level, but it also reflects what's going on at the city council level, because funding is involved with all this. So we're looking ahead for schools, and education, public safety. We've got to continue as our city grows. We have to find out ways to fund more police officers and more fire. We also need to find more ways to enforce some of the rules out there. And what I mean by that is parking rules. Tonight was a little different. I'm going to get into some of the issues tonight. Some of the issues that I want to get into is the enforcement of parking, the overnight parking that's happening throughout the city that I hear at every single door in certain sections of the city. There's a problem outside. I can't park my vehicle. There's only so many parking spots in my parking lot. I get out to the on-street parking and I can't get a parking spot at night. Well, that's a problem. That's something that we as a city council needs to also go hand in hand with the mayor and the administration to do that. So we are the checks and balances of the city, but we can also dictate a lot of what's going on in the city at our council meetings. I've been doing that. I've been your voice. I've talked about a lot of issues that are occurring and are happening right now as our city is growing. We're in that tier phase of a lot of redevelopment happening. We obviously have a lot of question marks with North Quincy revitalization of the T. We have Wallaston, we have the downtown development that's happening as well. There's a lot of concern in the city today. While I was knocking on doors 4 years ago, it's a little different feel out there than it is today. My job as a city council, at-large councilor, is to view your opinions throughout the city. An at-large councilor has to take together all the different pockets of the neighborhoods and what the situation is. And the top tier thing that I continuously hear across the city in every neighborhood association that I go to is traffic. Traffic is by far the number one thing that I constantly hear. Roads is number two. Roads is number two. Those are two things that go hand in hand. We need to fund our roads, and we need to mitigate our traffic. I'm looking to push forward on a new traffic study, as well as hiring junior traffic engineers now to mitigate some of the traffic that's going on today. These are the issues that are here. So let's find solutions to do them. I'm trying to give you a solution to some of the madness out there in the city today. I could provide the best possible way, I got 30 seconds, of doing that. Today, I'll talk a little bit more about the questions and the concerns out in the city. I have a little bit of time left. I just want to say that I'm continuously out there in the public eye. I'm never just showing up at election time. I'm always out there, involved in the city, at the neighborhood associations, at the PTO meetings, at the different fall festivals, and being out there in the public eye to answer anything you have. I also hold office hours every month inside City Hall. With that being said, I'm out of time. All I ask from all of you is ask for one of 3 votes on September 12th. Thank you.
Thank you, Lord. Okay, next up is our current Ward 1 Councilor and candidate Councilor at Large, Margaret LaForest.
James, thank you very much. So good evening, everybody. Margaret LaForest, the current Ward 1 City Councilor. I've had the honor and privilege to represent Ward 1 for 8 years. My family's lived in Ward 1 in the city of Quincy, and specifically House Next, since 1891. My mother's here in the audience, the matriarch of my family. And it's because of my mother I'm so committed to the city of Quincy. My mother being the thing, proud Quincy High alum. Quincy is everything. Our neighborhood is an extension of our family, and you give your service to your community. It's something my family's done since 1891. I literally, my mother also saved every paraphernalia through the years, and we have House Next Illumination Committee ribbons from 1891. When I was a child, she was president of the community association, and so she brought me along. Kids are a great extra set of hands. She worked on a campaign for a local candidate, and I was a set of hands. I held that sign on election day. I think I was maybe 10 years old. I decided that day I was going to be the Ward 1 City Councilor, and I've held that job for 8 years. I grew up to also, I served as the president of the community council. We started Childhood Fest. We brought back Illumination. It's about the community events and the people that you're involved with. So I'm grateful for my family's commitment to the city of Quincy. In my time in office, the one thing I campaigned on and held true to was about communication and accessibility. The ward councilor is the elected official closest to the people. You see me on the sidelines of my kids' sports, you see me in the supermarket, you see me in church on Sunday. The most important thing you can do as a city councilor is be approachable to your constituents and make yourself available. I'm available 24/7, 365. If you follow my Facebook page, you know that. You see the consistent communication. I started when I was first campaigning with an e-newsletter, and I send out content, information that's important to you, letting you know what's going on in your neighborhood. So at the end of this evening, I welcome anyone that wants to subscribe to my e-newsletter to give me your email address if you haven't already. I envision taking that same concept on a citywide scale. I really feel that's an area the city can improve on. People here are committed to Quincy. They want to know what's going on and to understand and to be engaged and involved. I said to each of my ward councilor colleagues, as a run for at large, I understand what the job is on the front lines, and I want to be your wayman. Not the person when you tell someone no to come and try and get a yes. But when there's an issue in your neighborhood, I'm going to stand beside you and advocate strongly. So case in point, there's a lot of board issues that come up with board councilors, projects on the territory. And I've partnered and collaborated, particularly mostly with Councilor Cole and Councilor Hughes. That's where the Ward 1 borders are. Right now, one of our big hot issues is the Spectre compressor station in North Weymouth. That's right across the water. That's a major environmental issue. With a federal agency creating a policy, the local policy. I'm hearing them, the Spectre compressor station, talk about what a desolate environment it is. I'm going to tell you what that environment is. I live right on the waterfront. I look at that property. We've had bald eagles, snowy owls. I started my morning all summer with coffee with the great blue herons and the great egrets and the osprey. Robin Hills Marsh is 40 acres of restored habitat just upriver. Quincy's environment is something I'm particularly passionate about and involved in. Of course, the other federal agency you've probably heard me take a few shots at is FEMA. FEMA decides every so many years they're on a cycle to review the flood maps. That could have been easy to say that's a federal issue, but I knew the coastal district that I represented, and representing a city with 27 miles of coastline, this is an issue that was very technical, it was very confusing, and it was very expensive for the homeowners in my district and throughout the city. I educated myself and I became the expert. In fact, my colleagues all recognize my subject matter expertise, and many of you here in the Montclair neighborhood were severely impacted by that issue. And we fought hard to get those flood maps corrected, and we were successful in getting thousands of homes out of the flood zone, and in particular, a major section of Montclair. Up the Neponset River, that river came up, over Swan Street, and down Newport Ave. Major, major change affecting households that had no water view. My own house, right on the water, dock in the backyard, up on a hill, not in the flood zone. This wasn't an issue for myself. The house right next door to me, set down lower, got mapped in. These are issues. You know where I got a lot of the information about the FEMA policies? The back of the Patriot Ledger and the public notices. I'm a nerd. I read everything. You have to do your homework when you represent the city, and that's what I'm known for. A tenacious, strong work ethic, and I do my homework. One thing I've fought very hard on, particularly down in Ward 1, we're a heavily residential area. People probably don't realize it's not just Howes Neck, Germantown, Post Island, Adams Shore, and Marymount that I represent, but I have sections of Quincy Center and Quincy Point. It's important to balance. We're talking about the pivotal time and opportunity for Quincy to realize its potential. But you can't be asleep at the switch. You need to protect the integrity of the neighborhoods. I love living in suburbia down in the Quine and Howes Neck. A condo in downtown is not for me, but I understand different lifestyles, and it is an opportunity for a lot of other people. We've had a lot of zoning issues. People want to put anything they can, anywhere they can. I have not allowed a conversion of a single-family house to a two-family in my 8 years in office. I'm very proud of that. I don't even want to see it on the agenda. It doesn't belong there. But this is the level of details you've got to be reading and doing your homework. A lot of the projects that we've had development, the periphery of downtown. Well, we went through our transitions with Streetworks, now we're awaiting the exciting commercial development proposed by Fox Rock. We had a lot happen on the periphery of downtown. If you remember looking back, the old Stop and Shop gas station on Southern Artery, it was light, it was like graffiti, 18-wheelers. Stop and Shop spends $1 million, takes that light and makes it a vibrant commercial property. We had Dan Quirk rebrand his Ford dealership along the artery. Swan Auto took a lighted, overgrown, small spot and has a thriving business. He's a long-time Quincy business owner. And you look down the artery at what that transformation is. We're now seeing that up on Washington Street. South Cove Manor was a project, the old bottle and cans. It's a $30 million nursing home. Let me tell you, anyone's looking for nursing services, check that place out. It's beautiful. They did a phenomenal job. Every project I've worked on, whether it's the nursing home, whether it's the YMCA, whether it's the renovation of the Temple Bethel, the old Central Middle School, I've held a neighborhood meeting. I've loaded all the documents onto my website, margaretlaforest.com, and I walk the neighbors through. It's the job of the city council to be that liaison for the neighbors to understand when development is happening. There's an extensive planning process that goes into all these projects. One of the projects that we'll be meeting about this fall is the land disposition agreement we're talking about with Fox Rock. As the chair of the ordinance committee, I will be leading that discussion. I'm particularly curious to hear about Quincy Hospital. How many here were born at Quincy Hospital? Had your children at Quincy Hospital? I was born there, I had my first daughter there. I live in the peninsulas. I'll tell you, it's a long haul off House Neck when you need emergency medical services. I have been an advocate for maintaining emergency health care in our community. It's very important to me. The opiate epidemic, I remember with my neighbors. House Neck was ground zero. We had neighbors strong enough to let go of the stigma and share their personal stories years ago. We're already in 1 minute, this is flying by. There's more that we need to be doing. What's important is that you stay connected, you stay engaged, you come to events like this. I respectfully ask for your consideration. I have a lot of information online, margaretlaforest.com. I'm on Facebook. You can email me, text, message. I don't have office hours. My office hours are when you need me, you contact me. Respectfully, I ask for your consideration for one of your votes for City Council at large this year. Any questions? 30 seconds for a question. Yes? FEMA. So I'm going to tell you about the rest of the South Shore. The reason, no, I'll tell you, that's a question of FEMA and how we could have avoided it. It came to us the first round of flood stuff. Nobody fought harder for FEMA flood maps than I did. I connected to resources at the MMA. I'm the reason the Woods Hole Advocate joined our team because we went and we spoke and we shared and we asked for help. I would like to. That's not a yes or no question. Thanks, James. Thank you so much for your service to the community.
Thank you, Margaret. Our next candidate is current City Councilor at Large and candidate for City Councilor at Large, Julie Lincoln.
Good evening, everyone. I want to start by thanking all of you for taking the time to join us here. I want to thank my fellow colleagues and my fellow candidates for joining us as well. I'm Amy Yang, and I'm your at-large City Councilor. I'm proud to serve as an at-large councilor from my hometown. Quincy's an incredible place. This is something I knew when I first ran for office, and I learned much more about that in these last 2 years. I'm constantly inspired by the hard work that goes into our city every day. In every neighborhood, every civic association, every nonprofit organization that we have here in the city, all of our neighbors and our friends, as you can see, are committed to making our city thrive. We're all a part of this amazing community, and I'm proud to serve the people of Quincy. 2 years ago, I ran on a pretty simple platform to make our local government more accessible and transparent, and to engage more of the residents into our work at City Hall. And while I believe that there's been progress made on both those fronts, I still believe that we can do more and we can do better. Today, I'm running for re-election to the Quincy City Council because I know that I have more to contribute. I'm running because I want to build upon the progress that we all made. I'm running because I want to continue to be there for all of you, and together to fight for the future of our city. I can tell you that in Quincy, we all come together. We work with others who may hold different opinions on the best path forward, but different paths are not necessarily wrong. Different paths to the same goals provide us with a richness of perspective and a wealth of opportunity to move our city forward. I can tell you personally that the people that I've met and worked with since getting elected all share the same goals. To try and provide opportunities for everyone across our city and to give back to a community and city that we call home. We do this because we understand we're all in this together, and it's going to be together that we can make Quincy a better place to live and to work and to raise our families. This is something I personally experienced growing up here with my family, and it's one of the reasons that continues to inspire me to run for office. I can tell you that these last 2 years have been an amazing opportunity. I've had the chance to give back to my neighborhood, to neighborhoods across the city, to make a difference, and to actually help people one-on-one. I've also learned a lot about our city, the different neighborhoods, and the unique issues and challenges that we face, and about myself. This has been both a tremendous honor, but also a huge responsibility. And I can tell you that I've learned to expect even more of myself as your city councilor, and today I ask all of you to do the same. I've learned in these last 2 years that the work cannot be done alone. It cannot be done by the 9 councilors that are up there. It's done by going back to those civic associations, those nonprofit organizations, and the people that make up those organizations to get to the bottom of the issues and what affects each neighborhood, and collaborate to find the best, most effective solution on moving forward. If at first we don't succeed, we try again. And knocking on doors across the city and in these last 2 years, I've had a lot of different issues come to my doorstep, but they're also in a range. I've had residents have issues and concerns with the rapidly growing development that we're having across the city. And I've also had residents and neighbors come to me with a problem like, my sidewalk has not been fixed in 3 years. And it's been interesting because no matter who it is that you're talking to, no matter how many people the issue is affecting, to that one person who is expressing that problem to you, that is the biggest problem to them. And I have been committed and will continue to address that problem with that person, understanding that to them, that is the biggest issue that is plaguing me right now. I know that I have more to contribute to the city and to the city council. I know that I want to continue to be your voice on an array of issues, regardless if it's something right in front of your doorstep or if it's something that is affecting us citywide. I want to continue to be your voice on issues that matter to you, and I know that I will continue to fight to bring those issues to the forefront of the city council where they should be addressed. I humbly and respectfully ask for one of your 3 votes and for your support in my re-election to the city council. Thank you. I know I've got some time left, so it's okay. Are we running out of time right now? Excellent. So, again, I had talked about being able to reach a lot of different neighbors across the city on different issues. And again, while there are some major issues like development, the growing taxes, and traffic that are plaguing everyone in the city, again, I've also heard from residents that have issues that are unique to them in their neighborhoods. So these feedback cards, we've gotten over 200 of them back now in this past summer. And they're perforated on the side. You can rip them off, send it back anonymously, or send it back with your contact information. But this is helpful to make sure that in all of these issues that we are addressing on the council, that we're prioritizing based off of how many people it's affecting, what we can do, when we can find a solution, and who's got some great ideas for us. So if you don't mind, I'm going to pass this out to you folks, and at your leisure, you can just fill this out and send it back. This has been very helpful. Again, we've gotten over 200 of them back so far. The top issues, as we're seeing, are ones that we've all spoken about here tonight: development, traffic, congestion, pedestrian safety, traffic. Something interesting on here too that I was talking to a couple of folks with. Education wasn't filled out by a lot of folks. So things like that, it's interesting for us to continue to have our finger and have a pulse on the city and making sure that we're being responsible for the issues that are affecting us. So I think we still have some time for some questions, if that's all right. Great. Does anybody have any questions? Yes. Thank you for your question. I'm going to repeat that and paraphrase. If I miss anything, please call my attention to it. But the question and the concern and statement is around the opioid epidemic, the homeless population that's here, and the danger that that might potentially pose to residents that are, and taxpayers, like you said, that are here in the city right now. And the crime, right, and the crime that it poses as well. So, and your question for me is, what as a city councilor is my role in that and what I can do? So I can tell you that my experience with it has been before I was a councilor as well as while I'm a councilor. My family owns and operates 10 restaurants, 6 of which are in the city, 3 of which are right in the downtown where the Hancock lot is. And when I was with them for 5 years, I can tell you that when you leave, regardless of what time of day it is, whether it's 1 in the afternoon or it's 1 a.m. when we close up shop, there are folks that are in that area because it's so close to Father Bill's. Now I can tell you that I have had the opportunity to speak to a couple of those folks who are just saying, hey, do you mind if we get away from this area? Or what's going on, and trying to gauge the safety of my patrons in my restaurant. And I've come across a couple of people, while dangerous, others also are finding themselves just in a bad place. They're not necessarily bad people. That's not to say that there aren't and also folks that do pose risks out there. And we need to be diligent about that. We need to make sure that we're staying in constant communication with our police department, that we feel comfortable calling and reporting this, regardless if you see something happening in action or if you just have a concern, to call them and express that concern to them. We've been able to do that, again, since before I joined the council. I've also worked with organizations like Father Bill's. We now have a Phoenix House, but back then we just have Father Bill's. And the problem with that is that we have folks that are coming there to stay overnight. We don't have any day programs for them. I've talked to them about possibly trying to increase funding. We've done fundraising for them in the past. But that funding is not just to say, well, we need to be able to provide more food. We need to be able to provide maybe an extra hour for them to stay here. That funding needs to increase day program possibilities and opportunities so that these folks that are coming here to sleep, either in bed or to find somewhere to stay at night, in the morning they're not just leaving and going to the Thomas King Library or going to the parking lot where there are patrons at restaurants or going to the train station. What you can do is create day programs for them to say, you need to go get job training. This is how you build a resume. This is where you can go to the Quincy Career Center and pull up the applications that maybe are relevant to you, where you can start and rebuild your life. And these are the kinds of programs that we need to continue to push and say, these are opportunities with organizations that already exist to capitalize on the population that we need to support and help to get back on their feet. We can't just sit here and say, we're going to build a city, and when it gets beautiful, all of them are going to leave. That's not the case. You can have a gorgeous building, but we still have these facilities that are geared towards helping these folks, and we need to make sure that that help is going to be effective. Okay. She had said that this question is for everyone, not just me. It was a great question, so thank you for asking. Thank you. Disruptive, so I'm actually going to put these over here. Again, these are very helpful, so please feel free to take as many as you'd like and share it with friends and family that you might know. Thank you.
Thank you, Nina. Okay, our next candidate is current school committee woman and candidate for councilor at large, Anna Nguyen.
Well, thank you very much. So I was told not to scream so it doesn't have big feedback. I want to thank the association for having us here tonight. And I want to thank all of my fellow colleagues who are putting themselves on the ballot, because you have to be very brave to put yourself on the ballot. You expose yourself, your family, and you let yourself be open to questions. But those are the types of things that we want to be open to because we want to be able to address the concerns we have in Quincy. So I'm going to go back a little bit. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Ann Mulligan Mahoney. I say Mulligan because before I was a Mahoney, I was a Mulligan. And as a child growing up here in Quincy, I used to go visit my great-grandparents, Josie and Pete Farrer, on Farrer Street. And I used to say when I was little, when I grow up, I want to be just like them. They were very civic-minded, they worked at the telephone company, and they helped many people get through the Great Depression. Well, when I got married, maybe 27 years ago this October, which I think is pretty cool, I told my husband the only house in Quincy I wanted to live in was my great-grandparents' house. So I really thought I had, done something pretty fabulous. I was living in that house. My parents were living up the street on Charlotte Street in the house that my mom and my dad had grown up in. I'm the fourth generation, and my kids are the fifth generation. And Margaret, we date back to 1890. But I think it's pretty cool. I think that's a pretty cool thing to be able to say. And we're not on that very West Quincy. So living in this house and being down the street from my parents was pretty special when we started having a family. And that's when my real work started. But my husband wasn't from Quincy. And as I started school, the pressure to move, because we thought that schools would be better someplace else, I started to dig my heels in. I didn't want to go. And the next thing I knew, along with many other people that we were talking about the school committee, people felt they weren't being heard. And before I knew it, I was running for public office. And my dad said, "Do you know what you're getting into?" And I said, "No." Well, I was told by many people in the know in Quincy that nobody knew me, I didn't have any money, and you'll never get elected. But you're a nice enough person, so keep trying. But they didn't know me. What they didn't know is, you don't know me. I work very hard. I have a degree in marketing. I have a degree in finance, actually. I minored in marketing. But I worked in marketing, and I decided that I was going to knock on every single door in the city. And I pretty much did that. And I'm happy to say I'm finishing my third term on the school committee. Now that gives you just a little history. And the reason why I ran was those three kids. Well, my oldest daughter, Maggie, is now a graduate of college. My son, Liam, is his junior year of college. And my youngest daughter, Lori, who was 3 when I started this, is now going to 10th grade at North Quincy High School. I'm very proud of those children. But I'm also very proud of the 9,000 students that I got to know. Grades K through 12 graduated underneath my watch. And I think we did a good job. So now I'm going to tell you how I got into this race. And I ran from here too, so I do love the city. I was born actually in Quincy Square. I don't think any other candidate can say that. My mom and dad didn't make it to the hospital. My dad delivered me in Quincy Square, and I swore to God he couldn't tell that story to anybody when I was 16. I said, never tell that story again. Well, I told it. I'm running for council at Larch this year. And I like to say the city can knock me down, but I keep getting up because it's a city I believe in. And I changed my logo. Many people asked me in the audience tonight, instead of Annie. That's what it looks like, you're not wrong. It's a flag. It's a dedication of my mom. And she's 87 years old, and she's not been well. But my mom and dad are the ones who sat me down and told me, don't wait around for us, because we're lucky to be here every single day. But you have a job to do, and go out and do it. So I'm running for council at Larch because I believe in the city. So the next thing I started to do is just like those roots of going to school committee. I started a journey across the city to find out our city's needs. And let me tell you, our city has needs. But I can tell you that there's a lot of people who love Quincy just like me. And there's a lot of people who have great ideas that we can bring right into City Hall and start making some real efforts to make some goals to change. Some of your questions that you asked were some of the things that people shared with me. I'm going to tell you the top 4 things that people have told me at the doors. I too have a list, but it's not a formal list, and nobody's filled out a formal survey. But I've been asking those questions. What do you love? What do you think needs to be worked on so I can be your representative? I ask everybody at every door I go to. And every sign you see with my name on it, I personally knock on those doors. So what people have told me is, and there's no, I don't want to say, they change every time I talk to people, but the top 4 are single-family homeowners. They're really feeling a pinch in their taxes. And it doesn't matter if you're 87 and 90 like my parents, or you've been married 27 years like my husband and myself, or you're new to the family. The assessed values of your homes have gone up, but that's not enough for the city. They ask for more, and they seem to be spending as fast as we give it to them, and we're not seeing the return. One of my colleagues said, well, you know, you're going to cut services if we cut taxes, but that's not true. Because the other thing that's missing in our city is economic development. We have built buildings, but we have not put in any new stores. Yes, we have new restaurants, but we really haven't gone after any new economic development in the city. And we rely on the businesses that are here, and we're asking too much of them too. So just like the single-family homeowners, the businesses in our city are struggling too. And we need to bring new businesses to us, and there's ways we can do it. I'm going to tell you how. But the other thing that people have talked to me about is the development in Quincy. Now we were desperate for development. We all wanted it. Streetworks came and left. We didn't have the finances. We all know about that. So now we're starting development. But are we developing the real thing, or are we just developing to show that we can develop? That's the real question out there. And that development is happening in every inch of our city with no concern about what is happening to your everyday life. So when you leave your house now, this is the next one, you can't move in our city. traffic and the road conditions of our city are horrendous, and you can't move from one end of the city. I had to leave my house extra early to get here on time. No, I left my house probably at 5:10 to make sure that I was here, and I live in West Quincy, because I was concerned I might hit traffic on the other street. I had an event the other night at the Fours in Quincy Center. I went over to Quarry Hill, my husband went down Adams Street, he got there before me. I should have got there before him by rights, but the traffic was so bad. Again, it started at 6, I left at 5. I got there at 10 to 6. That's easy. So those are all the things that people are concerned with. And you probably wonder, well, how do we fix them? You're just running for council at large. But we have to have real discussions. Like I said, I work in marketing. I do project management for a living, and I have a degree in finance. I can tell you, I can work without finance. I work with the finance, and I can find things that they may not have seen before. I did it on the school committee. I'm going to give you an example of what I've done on the school committee. I can see some colleagues of mine in the audience, and they can vouch for this. When we had a big budget cut back in 2009, and we had to cut things, the first thing everybody focused on, because it was a big number of this, let's cut full-day kindergarten. Or let's make people pay for it, because no more free rides. The first progressive thing that we had done in education, and I have no idea how long in the city of Quincy, we were ready to put right in the chopping block. So I went to work, and I determined I would figure out the math equation to figure out if we keep it, how much it costs, if we cut it, how much it costs us, and if we would charge people, what's the reality that we're going to pay? Once I chunked down those numbers, I did a tour around the city, and I educated people on those finances. And I'm proud to say, Mayor Cope has to tell everybody he saved full-day kindergarten. Because I helped him understand the finances. And that's what I can do on the city council. Whether he's here or anybody else is here, you want city councilors that are going to represent you, the taxpayers, that are going to be able to help whoever is the mayor move our city forward so that we can all benefit. And that we don't have to come back and ask you for more. Now, one of the questions that was asked, I think it was, what are we going to do, or what can we do about homelessness and the crime in the city of Quincy? And Nina touched upon some of that. But with all this development happening, why are we not thinking about the one thing that's an eyesore in our city? We want everything to look shiny and new. But you wouldn't do that in your own home. You wouldn't fix everything underneath the roof with a big hole in it, right? You fix the roof first. Well, we have a problem. And when we're having that development, we should be negotiating litigation money and figuring out a way to solve that problem. Other communities have done it. They've actually gone out and they have negotiated with development, and they've created a one-stop spot for people where they can sleep, and the next day they can get up and they can clean themselves, they can go to the services, and they keep it all in place, and they try to keep it to the community people that they're servicing in the city of Quincy. I was just told I only have 1 minute. So I want to make sure everybody knows one other thing about me that's different, that stands out in the crowd. I'm not beholden to the city for my day job. I work outside the city, so I can be independent and be your vote. I'm not afraid to stand up, and I have shown that on the school committee, and I will continue to do that for you, the taxpayers. And the taxpayers of the city of Quincy, their number one concern is they feel like their voices are not being heard. That the meetings they go to, they're being told, not asked what they want. I promise to be that representative for you, and when I can't get my counselors to work with me, I'll call you all to City Hall and we'll get it done, because that's how you always get things done. So I am Mahoney. I'm a candidate for council at large, and I humbly ask for one of your 3 votes on September 12th, and if I'll not be enough to move on, I'll ask for it again on November 7th, and I promise to work hard. My cell phone's always over there, and everybody can reach me at any time of the day. But I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Our next candidate tonight is a former Ward 2 City Councilor and current candidate for Council at Large, Dan Moore.
Thank you, James. I want to thank the association for this invitation. Thank you all for coming. It's a pleasure for me to be here. As you know, my brochure was passed out earlier. I'm a lifelong resident of the city of Quincy and a graduate of Quincy Public Schools. The education and training that I received right here in Quincy enabled me to go on to Holy Cross College and BC Law School, and I've been a practicing attorney in Quincy for many, many years. because of my feeling for the Quincy Public Schools, it led me to the school committee for 2 different terms. And I served the school committee for 8 years, 2 of those years as your vice chair. And the second 4-year term, I committed myself to rebuilding and reconstructing our system. Those of you who are perhaps somewhat of my age or perhaps a little bit younger recall Proposition 2.5. And in the early 1980s, mid-1980s, and the late 1980s were pretty harmful to the Quincy Public Schools. And when I ran for that office for the second time, it was with one primary goal in mind, and that was that no child should go to a classroom with paint peeling off the walls. And no child should suffer the consequence of not rebuilding or renovating and having a classroom in a gymnasium or in a broom closet. And I committed myself to doing that, and after a 4-year term working with parents, teachers, city officials, school administrators, very proud of the work we were able to accomplish. And if there's one matter that I'd like to get across today, is that I'm someone who identifies a problem and then finds solutions. So in that particular case, I led the rebuilding of it. We added on and renovated the Byrne Design School. We brought a new concept into Quincy, which was the Early Childhood Center. And we built the Early Childhood Center, Amelia Della Chiesa. We rebuilt and reopened Quincy Point Middle School, where I went to school many years ago. And we built the Marshall School. And we opened up the Beechwood Mall. And that momentum that was started back in that day has carried forward today in the Central High School, Sterling, and hopefully that will continue going on. So I care deeply about the quality of our educational system. I personally benefited from that, and I feel a strong sense of responsibility to return that, and I've done that with 2 complete terms, and as your council advisor, I will continue to be an advocate for parents and children. Quincy children deserve the best. As an attorney, as a public defender, and as a prosecutor, I learned firsthand what crime can do, to answer this one question, to families, to individuals, and to neighborhoods. That was the problem. And I represented a community that there were certain pockets, like most communities, but there were certain parks, playgrounds, beach areas, schools, and playground areas that tend to generate crime. And the police respond to that same type of crime day in, day out, week after week, month after month. That was the problem. What was the solution? I wrote and passed Quincy's Community Policing Ordinance. That's a proactive approach that brings our police officers into schools, into neighborhoods. Police have the responsibility of maintaining police presence within a particular community. If there's a number of the same types of crime or criminal activity that's happening in a particular neighborhood, it's the responsibility of that particular police officer, that particular community police officer, to eradicate those conditions that are generating crime. All too often, people call 911, you get a different dispatcher, you get a different police officer responding. This approach has worked, will work, and it's one of the most popular programs in every community in the city, as Margaret will know, flying out to have more community police officers. I'm very proud of my work of identifying a critical problem within the city and finding solutions for that. I know the burden that seniors have in young families, for that matter. Maintaining a household, putting food on the table, paying the rent and mortgage, sending the kids out to school. And that's why I've been one of the most consistent fiscal watchdogs when I was on the city council. And I also did more than that. So I recognize the problems that many seniors have. And part of that is because my wife and I took care of her during that time. She was in her 90s and having a very difficult time making ends meet. So what did I do? I wrote the Senior Workers Abatement Program. We called it SWAP, S-W-A-P. And it was I like the word SWAP because the city got the benefit of the work ethic and product of some of our mature, seasoned, able workers. And the city would pay these folks a lot of money. It wasn't a lot of money, but for these folks, it brought them out of the house, gave them a purpose to come to work again. They felt pride and ownership. The city get the benefit of their work, and they were able to write off a portion of their real estate taxes or liabilities. So the seniors of our community, the working families of our community need our help, and I've been one to design particular programs to assist and educate. There's a program out there that some of you folks may be aware of it. It's a program that the state, whether or not you pay income taxes, if your real estate tax bill is a certain, or if your rent is a certain percentage of your income, the Commonwealth will actually give you a check, whether or not you pay taxes. They call it the circuit road. It's not city money, it's state money. And when I was a councilor, we went on cable TV with Representative Mariano and some folks from the Department of Revenue to educate our senior population about those benefits that they could take advantage of. I learned the importance of public works firsthand. I learned that from my dad, who was a public works employee. And that's why for the past 6 years, it has been my great honor to serve as your Commissioner of Public Works, right beside the same building that my dad pretty much his entire life. And I used the management that I had developed over a period of time. Some of you may know I was a Norfolk County Treasurer for a period of time. So I utilized the economic and budgeting experience that I learned as a councilor, as a school committee member, but also as a county treasurer. And I brought those skills to the office, those management skills. And when I left in June of this year, we had won 3 critically important awards from our regulators. The Department of Environmental Protection honored the Department for its management. Clean Water Action, which is a clean water advocacy group nationwide, honored us in the same fashion, and we won an award from the Stormwater Environmental Committee for our work in educating the public on the importance of stormwater management. But more needs to be done, and that's one of the reasons why I left the position of not having policy, because we need to change our policy with respect to road construction. One of the few communities in this area, and probably in Massachusetts, we do not have an appropriation in our budget to repair roads. We don't. Pretty much 100% of our money comes from Chapter 90, which is state funding. And on occasion we'll bond some money, but you can have a consistent road repair program by having bond issues that may be brought down by the council in 5 to 7 years. So we need to have a regular appropriation budget. And we need to continue our efforts to improve the condition of our roads. When I got to the Department of Public Works, we were carrying 2,000 potholes a year. But without any additional expenditure, when I left, we were repairing 16,000 potholes a year. When I got there, our sidewalk program was non-existent. When I left, we were repairing 400 or 500 sidewalks a year, notifying people and getting back to them. So whether it's schools, public safety, community policing, the other important matter that I want to talk about as far as finding solutions to particular problems. Open space, parks, playgrounds, things like that don't ever, not ever, but very rarely get the priority that we think they deserve. My solution to that, I wrote the hotel motel tax. I got my colleagues to support it, got the mayor to support it, got the state, legislative, senate, and governor signed it. $15 million have come into the city since we passed that piece of legislation. $15 million. Not borne by the taxpayer, paid by business to our city. That's the kind of aggressive leadership that I think I bring to the city council. I have a wealth of experience so they keep on working on what we got. I appreciate the vote, that's a better vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dan. So we're actually a half hour early. I don't believe the other two council large candidates are here. So we'll see them.